Welcome to my channel. A sealed letter, hidden for over a decade, reawakens a ghost the world thought buried. At Camp Westbridge, Sergeant Elise Carver, once dismissed as just a medic, must face her past as Revenant, the name whispered in black files and erased missions. When a forgotten protocol comes alive and an old comrade resurfaces as Lazarus, the line between survival and annihilation shatters. They said the letter was never meant to surface. No insignia, no rank, no official heading. Just a scuffed envelope sealed for over a decade inside a forgotten vault at Camp Westbridge. Across the top, a single name stamped in faded red ink, Revenant. Nobody knew what it meant until someone cracked it open. After that, nothing stayed the same. I never asked to be remembered. That was part of the deal. Keep quiet. Fade away. Live in the gray. But fate doesn't care about your deals. The first day I stepped onto the training grounds at Camp Westbridge, the chill hit like a slap. Mid-October, clouds hanging low, silence everywhere but in the whispers that followed me. I could feel the weight in the air, not of respect, but of suspicion. This place was where Marine Command candidates were broken down and rebuilt, where no one cared what patch you wore before you got here. But my boots were polished to a mirror shine. My uniform creased to perfection. Not that it mattered. Who let a medic into command school? Someone muttered behind me. She probably begged her way in. Another voice scoffed. I didn't flinch. I kept my eyes forward, hands locked behind my back. I'd heard worse from people who thought they understood combat. My name is Elise Carver, 32, former field medic. That's all they were told. That's all they needed to know. Until Blake Maddox swaggered onto the yard. He was exactly the kind of officer Camp Westbridge bred like weeds. Polished, loud, all swagger and no scars. 27, with the kind of smirk you wanted to wipe clean off his face. He looked me over once and sneered. Transfer? He asked, loud enough to draw a few chuckles. Sergeant Carver. I answered, not even turning toward him. Not here, he barked. Here, you're just another grunt trying not to wash out. They laughed, of course. Always do when the weak bark. I stayed quiet. A storm doesn't argue with thunder. That evening in the barracks, I unpacked in silence. The chatter around me was predictable. Maddox had already retold our encounter 5 times. Each version made him more heroic, more funny. She corrected me. He whined in a high-pitched mock voice, drawing more laughter. Like she's somebody. One of them said I probably couldn't disassemble a rifle without checking a tutorial. Another joked that my combat experience probably consisted of field bandages and splints. I didn't argue. I folded my shirt and placed it precisely in the locker. Then a patch fell out, gray, frayed, its edges singed. Before I could grab it, someone else did. Cadet Naomi Vega. Sharp eyes. Always watching more than she said. She looked at the patch, her brow furrowing. 3 words stitched in black. Revenant Unit 01. Her breath caught. I saw it. Just a flicker of recognition. A whisper from some briefing she wasn't supposed to remember. She said nothing, just handed it back. I nodded once. No need for thanks. 2 weeks in, and the jokes got bolder. Maddox made sure of it. During a hand-to-hand drill, he raised his voice so the whole squad could hear. Easy out there, Carver. Wouldn't want to bruise those medic hands. Laughter rolled across the courtyard. But I wasn't looking at Maddox. I was watching the tree line above the course. There, just for a second, a camera blinked. A flicker. Less than 2 seconds. No one else noticed. But I did. That night, I walked the perimeter alone. No one stopped me. Why would they? A former medic. Who cared what I did? The mess hall buzzed with chatter the next evening. The entire class had been ordered into the strategy room. Some kind of unplanned briefing. Most assumed it was a drill, another way to test discipline. I sat near the back, quiet as ever, tablet powered down. Maddox held court at the front row, legs stretched out, arms behind his head, spinning tales about close calls and made-up victories. His voice carried like always. They probably called the meeting just to hand out participation trophies, he joked. More laughter. A few chuckles sounded less confident than before. The cold was starting to settle. The lights dimmed. On the instructor's podium, the projector stuttered, then froze completely. Static spread across the central display. Confused murmurs rose. Then a low chime echoed through the room, unnatural in its timing. A notification popped up across the instructor's console. No fanfare. Just 5 words, white on black. Restricted access. AUTH code, Revenant 01. A collective shift swept the room. Chairs creaked, breathing stalled. The instructor furrowed his brow and began punching override commands. Nothing responded. Then my tablet, still on my desk, buzzed once. I glanced down. No sender. No subject. Just a message. Revenant active. Stand by. My pulse kicked. I didn't move. Just stared at the words as though they were burning through the glass. From 2 rows up, Naomi Vega turned around. She must have caught the message flash. Her lips parted. Her eyes met mine, and I could see it. She remembered the patch. She knew. She didn't speak. But she didn't look away, either. Long after lights out, I sat on my bunk with my knees drawn up, the notebook in my lap. Every page held pieces of the pattern, coordinates, time signatures, camera anomalies, movement logs. Data no one else cared about. But I cared. I flipped to the most recent entry. At the top, I'd written the activation code in red ink. Revenant Protocol Online. I stared at it for a long time. Out in the darkness, the wind howled across the outer fences. Rain started to tap on the windows, soft but steady. The kind of night that tries to cover its secrets. But not this one. Miles away, in a low-lit control room somewhere deep under another base entirely, a screen lit up with the same alert. Colonel Eli Corwin stood motionless before it. His face, usually carved from stone, had lost all expression. Revenant Protocol reactivated. He read it twice, then again, and finally, without a word, he straightened his uniform, took his cap from the hook, and left the room. No hesitation. No phone calls. Because that code wasn't just a call sign. It was a reckoning. At dawn, something shifted in the air around Camp Westbridge. Cadets walked with tighter shoulders. Conversations that were loud the day before came in whispers now. Something was off, but no one could name it. Maddox, of course, didn't notice. He smirked his way through breakfast, told more jokes, loud enough to try to shake the mood back into place. Probably just some tech glitch, he said, or a prank from base command. Somebody hacked the system for attention, he sneered. But fewer people laughed this time. A few even glanced toward the back where I sat. Naomi Vega sat beside me now, pretending to scroll through her tablet. But her voice was low when she spoke. Elise, she whispered. That message last night. I didn't answer. Didn't need to. She saw it anyway. My hand was clenched into a tight fist against my leg. The stillness in the room thickened. And then the lights flickered once. Twice. Then everything went black. Gasps. Shuffling. Voices rose in confusion. 7 seconds later, the lights came back. But something had changed. All the monitors were glowing. Every screen displayed the same message. Contact. Colonel Corwin. Inbound. The silence that followed was razor sharp. Then, footsteps. Measured. Heavy. Boots echoed down the corridor outside. Closer. Closer. And then, the doors swung open. Colonel Eli Corwin stepped inside. The room didn't just fall silent. It froze. Decorated. Broad-shouldered. Eyes like burnished iron. A man who had commanded battlefields and buried brothers. He didn't speak at first. He just looked around, until his eyes landed on me. I stood. No fear. Just recognition. He nodded once. Just a fraction. Just for me. Then he spoke, and the walls themselves seemed to listen. Revenant. Stand by. I reached the spot where the fence met the woods. Cold steel against my gloves. I looked up at the camera. The angle was wrong. The lens had been shifted, subtly. Enough to miss part of the path. You could have heard a pin drop. Colonel Corwin didn't raise his voice, but when he spoke, the whole hall obeyed. Sergeant Elise Carver, he said, his tone level, sharp. Front and center. I moved. Calm. Even. No hesitation. Each step echoing off the polished floor like a slow countdown. Maddox scoffed from the front row. What is this, a drama performance, he muttered. She's a transfer, just a field medic. Corwin turned his head slightly. Not fast, but with force. Lieutenant Maddox, he said, voice cold steel. At ease. You've said enough. The smirk faltered. For the first time since I arrived, Blake Maddox's confidence wavered. Corwin let the silence linger. Then he faced the room. You think you know who trains beside you? He asked. You think a clean uniform and a call sign tells the story? His gaze swept the crowd. You haven't got a clue. He turned back to me. 7 years ago, he said slowly. During an unsanctioned operation in the Kairos Mountains, 12 Marines were trapped. Rescue operations failed. The zone was written off. Too hostile. No support. No hope. The recruits leaned forward. Then a 4-person squad entered. No backup. No air cover. No comms. 47 minutes later, all 12 Marines were walking out alive. He paused. She led that squad. Her call sign was Revenant. Gasps rippled across the room. Heads turned. Whispers rose, but Corwin cut them down with a look. She didn't inherit that name, he said. She earned it. Then he added, quieter now, with something just short of reverence. And she saved my life. Vega sat frozen beside her chair, her jaw slack. A few cadets around her stared at me as though seeing me for the first time. Even Maddox, mouth open, hands slack, seemed to shrink. Corwin faced him fully. You mocked her. You questioned her worth. And your excuse? He leaned in slightly. You didn't know who she was. He turned back to the group. That's the point, he said. You never asked. Silence, again. But this time, it was heavy with shame. He turned to me and gave a short nod. I returned it. No words exchanged. None needed. Then, without any command, a cadet at the back rose and saluted. Another followed. Then another. Within seconds, the entire room stood, rows upon rows of cadets and officers, heels together, arms raised in salute. Perfect. Unspoken. Unified. For the first time since setting foot on this base, I was no longer the quiet transfer or the washed-up field medic. I was Revenant. Corwin stepped closer. His voice dropped, low enough only I could hear. They see it now, he murmured. But this isn't about them. My jaw tensed. Then who is it about? He looked past me, out toward the closed doors. Someone's watching this base, he said. Someone who shouldn't be. My breath caught. My hand instinctively rested near my hip, fingers brushing the empty holster. So it starts again, I whispered. Corwin nodded once. Welcome back, Revenant. That night, the skies cracked open. Rain pounded the roofs. Wind howled through the trees like it remembered something the world had tried to forget. I sat on the edge of my bunk, tablet in hand, the screen glowing with a single line. Revenant active. Stand by. I'd barely processed the weight of it when the sirens screamed. Klaxons tore through the halls. Lights blinked red. Somewhere, boots pounded against tile, and voices shouted orders through static-laced radios. Breach detected. West perimeter. Cadets spilled from their bunks. Some struggled with gear, others stood frozen. Training didn't prepare for this. Within minutes, the strategy hall transformed into a command post. Screens lit up, personnel shouting, trying to piece together the assault. Corwin stood at the center, calm amid the chaos. His voice carried weight. Precision. Lockdown Alpha. Gates sealed. Secure the armory. Then a young officer's voice cracked through the noise. Sir, it's not from outside. Corwin turned, sharp. Repeat that. They're not breaching in, the officer said, pale-faced. The alert tripped internal sensors. Sir, they're already here. The room went dead still. Corwin's gaze met mine instantly. South wing. Take Vega. Move. I was already gone before the last word left his mouth. Vega met me in the corridor seconds later, sidearm in hand, boots half-laced but focused. What are we looking for? She asked, breath tight. Answers, I said. And whoever's hiding in our walls. We moved through the southern wing, lights flickering, every hallway dipped in eerie shadows. Emergency power cast everything in shades of red and gray. Then I saw it. A vent panel, loose. The metal around it freshly disturbed. They've been here, I muttered. A faint noise behind us, too soft for a footstep. But I heard it. Step out. I called, weapon raised. A figure emerged from the dark, dressed in black fatigues, gear that didn't belong to any Marine unit. Suppressed weapons. No insignia. He didn't freeze long. He ran. Vega fired. Missed by inches. I gave chase. We tore down corridor after corridor, passing doors that flicked open on motion sensors, alarms still shrieking somewhere far behind. He bolted down into the lower levels, the old maintenance wing. Long abandoned. No surveillance coverage. No lights. Perfect place to vanish. Except I knew this base better than most ever would. I cornered him at a security panel. He was planting something, sleek, blinking. Not foreign. Not hostile. U.S. military tech. He turned as I raised my weapon. Who sent you? I barked. He said nothing. just threw down a flash charge and disappeared into the smoke. By the time we cleared the room, he was gone. But the device remained. I knelt beside it, studied the tag, serial number scratched out. But I knew what it was. Not a bomb, not surveillance. A test. A system override trigger, something designed to probe our response. I looked at Vega. This wasn't sabotage, I said. She frowned. Then what was it? Calibration, I said coldly. They were testing us. By dawn, the sirens had quieted. The base had returned to a tense calm. Nothing was stolen. No one was hurt. But that made it worse. This wasn't an attack. It was a warning. I dropped the device onto the strategy table with a metallic clink. They wanted to see how long it would take us to notice, I said. Corwin didn't speak. He stared at the device like it had insulted him personally. They knew our blind spots, he muttered. They knew protocol, layout, timetables. He looked at me. Someone on the inside is feeding them. Across the room, Maddox stood, arms awkwardly at his sides. He was different now, shaken, uncertain, the cocky edge gone. I didn't know, he said quietly. I turned toward him, stared into his eyes. Now you do. The rain hadn't stopped. By morning, the base was drenched in mist. Water pooled in the gravel paths and streamed down the steel siding of the main buildings. Everything felt muffled, like the world was holding its breath. I stood under the awning outside Barracks C, staring out at the tree line. The device was real. The breach was real. But the most important part? They hadn't wanted to win. Not yet. Whoever infiltrated us had done it not to destroy, but to learn, to observe, to measure. They wanted to know if I still remembered who I was. They were about to find out. Inside the command center, Corwin leaned over a digital map. 3 devices had been located across different zones of the base, none in secure areas, but close enough to test access response times. Each one was a fingerprint, too precise to be coincidence, too internal to be foreign. These weren't planted by outsiders, he said grimly. They were placed by someone who used to wear our uniform. Vega stood beside me, reviewing the internal footage from last night. One frame caught her attention, a flash of a figure sliding past a sensor array. Quick. Calculated. Look, she pointed. No badge ping. That hallway's locked behind clearance. They bypassed it. And bypassed it clean, I added. Whoever they are, they're either a ghost or someone taught by one. Corwin didn't look up. Only one group ever trained for this kind of infiltration. He tapped the screen, highlighting an encrypted record. No name, just a single phrase. Gideon Protocol. I felt the chill before he said the rest. Codename, Lazarus. I hadn't heard that name in years. Lazarus. It wasn't a person. It was a concept. A ghost created during a Black Ops initiative, designed to test threat response from within. A system of internal sabotage missions, meant to be countered by elite units during live conditions. Except it had been shut down. After a mission went too far. After someone on the good side didn't make it out. I remembered that mission. Because I let it. Later that night, Corwin called me into his office. The room was quiet, lit only by a lamp near his desk and the low hum of an encrypted terminal. He didn't offer a chair. I didn't need one. Why now? I asked. He rubbed a hand down his face, tired. Because someone in a suit wants to know if Revenant still functions. And if I don't, then they'll send someone else. Someone without your judgment. Someone who doesn't care if people on this base become collateral. I nodded slowly. And Lazarus? Still alive, he said. Somewhere. And watching. That breach last night, it wasn't just to test the base. It was personal. That signature on the device wasn't a threat. What was it? A challenge. In the days that followed, everything changed. Maddox no longer sneered. Cadets who once rolled their eyes when I passed now stood a little straighter. Vega followed me, mostly in silence, but she watched everything I did. The way I moved, how I tracked shadows. She was learning, even if she didn't say it aloud. I saw myself in her. A younger version. I still questioning. What was Revenant, really? She asked me one evening as we walked perimeter detail. Not what, I answered. Who? You mean you? I shook my head. I was never the only one. Revenant was the name they gave to people who were already ghosts. People who were supposed to be gone. She walked in silence after that, processing. Finally, she asked, do you think Lazarus is one of you? No, I said. He wasn't one of us. Then who? I looked out at the fog-laced hills beyond the fence. He was worse. It happened at 0317 hours. A single motion-triggered sensor in the north corridor tripped, just for a heartbeat. It shouldn't have registered at all. The camera feed was corrupted. The audio stream glitched. But the alert made it through. I was already awake. When you've lived in shadows long enough, your body doesn't sleep the same. It waits. It listens. I pulled my boots on and headed straight for the north wing. Vega, always alert since that night, met me halfway. She didn't ask, just fell into step beside me. We moved without light, without sound, slicing through corridors built to echo nothing. And then I saw it. Not a person, a message, etched with precision on the wall near the locked archive room, scorched into the paint with a microtorch. One word, remember. And beneath it, a symbol I hadn't seen in almost a decade. A triangle split by a vertical line. The mark of Lazarus. By 0500, the strategy room was sealed. Corwin stood with arms crossed, watching the footage again and again. No clear image of the infiltrator. No ID. Just that mark. Why this corridor? Vega asked. Because it houses Project Helix archives, Corwin said. Files that don't exist. Maps that aren't on the grid. Old asset data. Yours, Carver. They came to look at me, I said quietly. No, he corrected. They came to remind you. This isn't over. He turned to Vega. When you're hunted by something like Lazarus, you have two options. You run, or you out-hunt. Vega nodded, but her face paled slightly. So what now? Corwin looked at me. I answered for him. We prepare for the next move. Later that day, I walked the base alone. Not as Elise Carver the transfer, but as Revenant. Cadets saluted me now, not just out of respect, but out of realization. Maddox avoided my gaze entirely. Vega trailed me silently, always learning. In the armory, I retrieved a storage crate sealed under triple clearance. Inside, pieces of my past waited. An encrypted comms beacon, an older sidearm I hadn't touched in years, a black notebook marked with a number, 012. Revenant Unit 01. 12 of us once. We operated beyond the chain of command, running interdictions against targets our own agencies couldn't admit existed. And now, only one remained. As I checked the comms beacon, a ping registered. Low frequency. Untraceable. An old cipher code. Vega stepped closer. What is that? I didn't answer. My eyes were locked on the decoded message as it printed across the screen. Underscore they remember you. Slash transmission follows ///// REV 01 // Vortex reactive // Lazarus, not dead. It ended with coordinates. Not for somewhere in the mountains. Not for a secret bunker. It was pointing to a civilian supply depot just beyond the base. I read it 3 times. Each word a blade digging deeper into memory. They're already inside the network, I said. Corwin appeared behind us. Then we're out of time. That evening, the base shut down all external communications. SATCOM was jammed. Digital locks were reset to manual. The walls of Camp Westbridge weren't just guarding personnel anymore. They were guarding secrets. And I was the biggest one of all. As I stood at the north fence, the mist creeping in once more, I felt it again. That sense you only get when a ghost steps into your shadow. I didn't turn. Didn't draw. I just whispered. I remember. I pulled out a battered field notebook. Scribbled coordinates. A time. Nothing else. The supply depot wasn't marked on any public map. Just a shell site used to mask deeper operations. Vega and I reached it by midnight, taking the back trail through the woods. Paths used in older training rotations, now grown thick with moss and silence. No spotlights. No patrols. Just one blinking motion sensor on the far corner. Too quiet. This doesn't feel right, Vega whispered. It's not, I replied. It's bait. Still, I moved forward. You can't find a ghost by waiting. Inside, the building was gutted, storage racks half empty, crates labeled with meaningless codes. Everything covered in a thin film of dust, except the central console. That glowed. Waiting. I stepped to it slowly. Vega kept watch, her sidearm raised. The monitor came to life without a touch. Accessing Revenant archive file, 1A. Lines of encrypted text poured across the screen. Most of it was gibberish, burned logs, corrupted videos. But then, one file held. An audio stream. Dated 6 years ago. I recognized the timestamp instantly. It was the last mission before the unit dissolved. Before Lazarus was supposed to be dead. I hit play. Static. Then voices. Crackling radio chatter. Screams. Gunfire. And then, unmistakably, a calm voice came through. Deeper. Measured. Target location confirmed. Primary asset eliminated. Revenant protocol terminated. Lazarus reborn. Then silence. Vega stared at me. That was your team? I nodded once. That was the moment we thought Lazarus died. But he didn't, she said, her voice barely audible. No, I said. He just went dark. A second transmission appeared. Initiate. Vortex reactive. Location, Red Finger Ridge, 0300 Zulu. Subject, Revenant/Lazarus interface requested. My mouth went dry. Red Finger Ridge was an old training kill box, a sealed-off zone used for high-risk war games. Abandoned after a training accident claimed 2 recruits. The bodies were never found. Back at base, Corwin reviewed the footage from the depot's console. He said nothing for a long time. Just stared. Why Red Finger? Vega finally asked. Corwin turned. Because that's where it started. He looked at me. And maybe where it ends. He tapped a comm switch. Authorization, black curtain. Operation Vortex is live. The lights in the strategy hall dimmed as new protocols unlocked. Lockers sealed for over a decade hissed open. Within them, Revenant gear. Hardened mesh. Signal-blocking helmets. Dull black plating. Ghost armor. You're suiting up, Corwin said. Who's going with me? I asked. He looked toward Vega. She is. Vega blinked. Me? You're her eyes now, Corwin said. If Revenant goes in, someone's got to make sure she comes out. I looked at Vega. She looked terrified, but she didn't hesitate. She nodded once. At 0240 hours, we stood at the gates of Red Finger Ridge. The wind had died. The world felt paused, as though something was watching, waiting. I pulled the helmet over my head. My voice crackled over the secure channel. Revenant. Moving to interface point. Vega's voice followed. Vega. On your 6. And together, we stepped into the dark. Then I walked on. They still thought I was a transfer. They thought they knew what I was. They didn't. But they would. Red Finger Ridge was nothing like the rest of Camp Westbridge. The trees here grew too close together, limbs twisted unnaturally. The ground was dry despite the rain that soaked the base the night before. No birds. No animals. Just silence and soil. Vega walked at my 6, scanning the ridgeline with every step. Her breathing stayed even, but I could tell she felt it too. That pressure, like the land itself, was holding secrets. Why here? She whispered over comms. Because it's where Lazarus lost everything, I said. And where he believes I did too. The interface point was an old transmission hub, buried in a trench at the base of the ridge. A metal hatch, half-rusted, with a retina lock that had no business still functioning. But it lit up the moment I stepped near. A soft beep. The hatch unsealed. The tunnel beneath was darker than night. We descended slowly, our suit lights cutting faint paths through years of undisturbed dust. At the bottom, we found it. A control chamber. Ancient by military tech standards. Analog boards, flickering dials, a central screen powered by backup battery. Then the screen lit up with a single word. Revenant. A voice followed. Not live. Pre-recorded. Mail. Controlled. Carver. You always were predictable. Vega tensed beside me. I know this voice, I whispered. Briggs. Lieutenant Cade Briggs. He was Revenant 03. Smart. Calm. A tactician who could outthink a battlefield faster than you could pull a trigger. We left him behind on the Kairos mission. Not because we wanted to. Because we thought he was dead. Lazarus isn't just an idea anymore, Briggs' voice continued. It's a system. Built from every failure we were forced to carry. And it's coming back. Static buzzed. Then a new line of text appeared. If you're seeing this, the cycle begins again. I stared at it. Heart steady. Vega whispered, he's still alive. I shook my head. Not Briggs. Not really. She frowned. Then who is he? Someone forged from what was left. A door behind the console slid open with a hiss. Not old. Not broken. Maintained. We aimed weapons immediately. No movement. Just another room, smaller. A data vault, walls lined with classified cases and sealed capsules. On a central table, a black case with one symbol burned into its lid. The Revenant triangle. Inside, a drive. Encrypted. And a card. Old, scuffed. With one handwritten note. You shouldn't have come back. Back on the surface, We exfiltrated in silence. The air was colder now, heavier. The mist felt thicker than before, curling around our boots as we climbed out of the trench. We were supposed to bury this, I said quietly. Vega looked at me, finally speaking what we both felt. But someone wants it alive. At base, Corwin waited in the war room. He didn't need words when he saw our faces. He just tapped a terminal and activated the firewall sequence. Decrypt it, he said. As the drive unlocked, lines of code spilled across the monitors. A map, names, protocol layers. Vega leaned in. Sir, this is every dormant asset flagged under Revenant protocols. I finished for her. Current locations, last known statuses, sleep codes. Some of these names aren't dead. Corwin's voice was grim. No, they're waiting, and Lazarus intends to wake them. I turned away from the screen. Lazarus wasn't just a threat. He was building something. A resurrection of ghosts we thought long buried. And we were already part of it. The drive's data was more than a map. It was a manifesto. Dozens of names, some I knew, some I never met. Former Black Ops units. Disavowed agents. Ghosts. All tied to one thing. Revenant spill-off programs. Cancelled before they launched. Too unstable. Too dangerous. But Lazarus, he hadn't forgotten them. He'd been tracing them. Reconnecting. Waiting for the right moment to ignite them all at once. This isn't revenge, I said. It's activation. Vega sat beside me in the dim light of the war room, eyes locked on the screen. What happens if they answer the call? I didn't need to answer. Corwin said it for me. Then every protocol we buried becomes a weapon. We spent the next 72 hours tracking signals. 2 names on the list had already moved. One near Rixford Air Station, another flagged in a surveillance loop near Tokyo. The pattern was clear. They weren't hiding. They were testing response. And our response had been slow. Lazarus is baiting us, Vega said during a briefing. Trying to pull Revenant operatives into the open. Corwin nodded. And so far, it's working. They'd found me. Then they'd made me visible. Now they were waiting to see if I'd run or fight. I'm not hiding, I said. Corwin looked at me. Then it's time to end this. Later that night, I returned to my bunk. The base was quiet, but not at peace. Everyone could feel it now, that we were on the edge of something we couldn't predict. The notebook lay on my bed. I hadn't opened it in days. I flipped to the final page and scrawled a single word in red. Vortex. It wasn't a protocol. It was a choice. A black-level mission only deployed when ghosts needed to clean their own. At 0300 hours, I entered the briefing room alone. No one summoned me. The room lit up as I stepped through. A familiar voice crackled through a hidden speaker. Elise, if you're hearing this, then you chose to fight. It was Briggs again, recorded years ago, before he turned. This world doesn't want us, but it needs us. Revenant was never about justice. It was about balance. You can't erase the ghosts. You can only decide which ones you answer to. Static. Then silence. Outside, Vega waited near the vehicle bay. She looked tired, worn, but ready. You think this ends with Lazarus? She asked. No, I said. But he's the start. I tossed her a gear bag. Pack light, I said. We don't need much. Where are we going? She asked. I looked to the horizon as the sun cracked over the trees. To the last name on the list, I said. She blinked. You mean? Yes, I said. The one who trained Lazarus. The one we buried in the Nevada desert. Vega's voice dropped. I thought she was dead. I slipped on my gear. So did I? We flew out at dawn in an unmarked VTOL under Ghost Protocol. No flight plan, no comms, no trace. Just coordinates and silence. Vega sat across from me, helmet in her lap, eyes scanning the map between us. This is her last known site? She asked. I nodded. 6 years off-grid. The mission report listed her as Kia, but the body was never recovered. And you think she trained Lazarus? I know she did. Her name was Lena Cade. Revenant 00. The one before all of us. The original ghost. She was what Revenant was built on, before it was controlled, before it had borders. Her methods were too ruthless, too untraceable. So they buried her deep under the name of a failed op and pretended she never existed. But someone remembered. And if Lazarus had a teacher, it had to be her. The desert outpost was half buried in sand. The old surveillance masts snapped by years of wind. But beneath the dust, we found power. A single generator. Still humming. Vega's voice came through the static-filled channel. This place is alive. I nodded. She's here. Inside the main shelter, the air was stale, walls lined with analog monitors showing static and heat maps. Old tech, but still running. And in the center, on a steel chair, sat a woman. Gray hair tied back. Black fatigues. Calm as stone. Lena Cade. She didn't look up as we entered. I wondered when you'd come, she said. I didn't draw. Not yet. You trained Lazarus, I said. She nodded once. He came to me when Revenant cut him loose. I gave him purpose, direction, and then he made a choice. Vega raised her weapon. He's building something, turning ghosts into weapons. Cade looked at her, almost sympathetically, because that's all we were ever allowed to be. I stepped forward. He wants war. Between us and them. You trained him. You know what he'll do next. Cade stood slowly. I trained him to survive, but I didn't teach him mercy. She walked toward a console, pressed a switch. A holomap flared to life. A new location. Not a desert. Not a mountain. A city. His final move will be public, she said. He's going to expose Revenant to the world. Every op. Every name. Every ghost. Why? Vega asked. Because he believes if the world sees us, they'll destroy us. And he wants us destroyed. I clenched my jaw. Then he dies first. We left Cade there. She didn't ask to come. Didn't try to run. I've done enough, she said as we boarded the VTOL. And for the first time in years, I believed her. Our final destination was Grey Point, a city where the lines between civilian, corporate, and covert blurred into one. Lazarus planned to leak the Revenant files through a hacked satellite relay. We landed 3 clicks out, underground. Vega loaded the last clip into her rifle. You sure we can stop him? No, I said. But we have to try. The operation was clean. We infiltrated through service tunnels, bypassed thermal nodes, rerouted signal flow. And then we saw him. Cade Briggs, Lazarus, standing beneath the uplink tower, hands raised like a prophet waiting for his miracle. You came, he said as we stepped into view. You made it personal, I answered. He smiled. It always was. The fight was fast, brutal. Briggs was trained too well, but I was trained first. When the dust settled, the uplink was severed. Briggs lay unconscious. I stood over him, chest heaving. Revenant, he muttered. They'll never let you go. I'm not asking them to, I said. Back at Camp Westbridge, the air had shifted again. The cadets watched me differently, not just with awe now, but understanding. They knew what it meant to carry the title, to be the last line between control and chaos, to be Revenant. Corwin met us on the landing pad. It's over, he asked. No, I said, but it's quieter. He looked at Vega. How'd she do? I glanced at her and nodded. She's ready. That night, I sat on my bunk one last time, notebook in my hands. I turned to the back page and wrote, Lazarus contained. Revenant active. The ghosts remember. And then I closed it. Not because the story was over, but because the world had remembered who we were. And that was enough. For now.